All right, it is playoff roadmap time post week 12. So if you haven't seen this before, I pick every game from here on out, and essentially it'll create a playoff picture, although really it's less about the playoff picture that ends up and more about going through each team's schedule and talking about what each team has to do to make the playoffs, and also what teams have to do to, that are competing for the 1 seed, how they can get the 1 seed. We don't talk about every team, just kind of the most notable ones, but yeah, let's get into the list, and let's start off with the AFC, as the Chiefs they were the big storyline of this video last week. They get a big win against the Colts. So you see right here, this is the current playoff formula as of how I have it set. Although again, I have both the Patriots and Broncos winning out. It's gonna be tough for both of those teams to do it. So that's if both of them do win out, the Broncos would get the 1 seed, Patriots 2 seed, Colts 3 seed, Ravens still with the 4 seed, tied with the Steelers. We'll talk about them in just a second. Also, the Bills, Chiefs, and Jaguars would be the wild card teams if it goes exactly as I expected to go, which of course it will not. So because of that, things will change, and that's what we'll get into. First, let's talk about the 1 seed. So what are these teams? To me, there's still 3 teams really competing for the 1 seed, although the Colts definitely take a step back with their loss against the Chiefs. But, it's the top 3 seeds. First, just the Denver Broncos, because they have the inside pathway. If they win 6 games, they will get the 1 seed no matter what. They control their own destiny for the 1 seed. The issue is that could be tough. The next 2 games, not so tough. Commanders and Raiders. Then they have the Packers and the Chiefs still on the schedule, and the Chargers, who might be, depending on how things go, really competing for a playoff spot at that point. And even Jacksonville is a team currently in a playoff spot. So can you actually go 6-0? It seems unlikely. It seems like maybe the hope is 5-1 or 4-2, and you hope that you can just match New England. This is New England's schedule. They have a bye week, a late bye week. Crazy that we're still doing bye weeks, but yeah, we still have one more bye week. One more week where teams have byes. The Patriots are one of those teams. So they just have to go 5-0 and get 1 Broncos loss, or obviously win 4 games and get 2 Broncos losses to end up getting the 1 seed. You have the Bills, which is no guaranteed win. The Ravens, which is no guaranteed win. Although Giants, Dolphins, and Jets, it feels there's a very good chance the Patriots could end up with the 1 seed when it's all said and done, because they have an easier schedule. So if the teams match, the Broncos will get it. But if they do not, if the Patriots can get the extra win, obviously they will get the 1 seed. As for the Indianapolis Colts, as I mentioned, I still think that they do have a chance here for a couple of reasons. Now, they have 2 issues. One, they just have 1 more loss than both the Broncos and the Patriots at this point, so they have to make up a game there. And they're the only team with a scheduled loss on the board right now. I have them losing to Seattle at this point. So that would mean that, that puts them 2 games back. So they have to make up 2 games somewhere. That being said, if they do make up those 2 games, if it's a tie of any capacity with these 3 teams, the Colts would be the team that gets the 1 seed. So they just have to make up ground against either of, they just have to tie in that scenario. The Seattle game's going to be tough. They also play Houston. That's not a guaranteed victory. A lot of divisional matchups. They played Houston twice and the Jaguars twice. Those aren't guaranteed wins, even if I have them winning both. In fact, 0-6 is on the table. These are all competitive games at this point. Ultimately, I don't think they go 0-6. I don't think they go 6-0 either, but that's what they have to do to get the 1 seed. Still possible. Again, let's look at the whole conference now for the AFC, because there's a couple of playoff hopefuls I have just missing out. I talked about Miami last week. It's still pretty similar with them. Very difficult situation, even if they'll win a few games. So we're not going to talk about them this week, but we will touch on the Chargers, as we did last week, and the Texans, who I have going 9-8 now, which still wouldn't quite be enough to make the playoffs, but they're very much alive in this situation. If they can flip another game or 2, they have a real chance. Let's get into the playoff hopefuls. And first, let's start off with the 2 teams still fighting for the division, I would say, in a meaningful way. Fighting for a division in a way that could end up being for a playoff spot. First, you have Baltimore, who I do have making the playoffs. Again, them and Pittsburgh I have tying their record, and I have splitting the series. So obviously, that's an easy way for both of these teams to make it. If you sweep, you're probably going to get it at that point, guaranteed tiebreaker, and in this scenario, you'd lead by 2 games as well, so it would need a lot to go wrong outside of that to miss the playoffs at that point. You see, though, I will say for Baltimore, Thanksgiving and a couple weeks later, they're playing Cincinnati. Divisional games are never guaranteed. I do have them losing to the Patriots and Packers, though, so they have some margin for error. Beat the Steelers once, beat the Bengals twice, or if you lose to the Bengals, you win another game, you would still have the tiebreaker in that scenario. If you can do that, you're okay. Meanwhile, for Pittsburgh, I also have them with some margin for error. I have them losing to the Bills and the Lions and losing to the Ravens once. The Dolphins and Browns feel like they should be wins at that point. You can win those 2 games. They're going to have to make up another game somewhere for that last game to matter. Either beating the Ravens the first time would do the trick. Also, beating the Bills or the Lions would do the trick. They're going to have to make up another game, though, because just if they're down a game entering the final game of the season, it doesn't matter. They can't win the division. Now, what is possible, though, is for Pittsburgh to get a wild card spot. In fact, as of how I have it right now, if both Baltimore and Pittsburgh make up an extra game and they both end up with 10 wins, well, then that means Baltimore would still get the 4 seed, but Pittsburgh would get the 7 seed instead of Jacksonville. So that is another wrinkle here. I still think both of their highest likelihood of making the playoffs would be with the division, but there is a way they can do it without the division. Let's go to the 2 teams that are currently in a playoff spot, but definitely have some work that needs to be done. So Jacksonville, I have going 3-3 down the stretch, beating the Titans twice and the Jets, also losing to the Colts twice and the Broncos to get a little bit of cushion. I think splitting against the Colts makes you feel a little bit better in this scenario, although I do think that, you still have a decent chance at making it regardless. But, you definitely don't want to just go 3-3 because, as I mentioned, the Steelers could jump up and take that playoff spot. It's worth noting, so I have both the Chargers and the Texans finishing a game behind Jacksonville, but the Chargers, if they win an extra game, the way I have everything breaking down, that would not mean that they get a tiebreaker. They would still, a tie, you're still okay. So Jacksonville has some room for error there. But for Houston would have the tiebreaker if they end up tying. So that's an important, interesting factor in all of this, and that's for a wild card spot, not for the division, because things get different with the division. So let's touch on Houston, who is very much in this now with a big upset win over Buffalo. Feels like it's very possible. Like I said, if they can make up 1 extra game over Jacksonville, that's with the Jaguars maybe going 2-4 down the stretch, that would get Houston in that scenario. Oh, actually, no, correction. That would not get Houston in that scenario because the Steelers would get in if the Jaguars lose an extra game. So you'd have to jump the Steelers as well. So realistically, and plus the Jaguars going 2-4 feels like you're getting a lot of help there. It feels like 10 wins is the pathway. You get 10 wins, that probably is enough. I only have them finishing with 9, beating the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Chargers, which is no guarantee. I have them getting swept by the Colts. I think that's their pathway in, is you win 1 against the Colts, and then you win the other 3. That gets you in. It is worth mentioning that Chiefs game in 2 weeks is a very big game. That is something that, if it flips the other way, that would get the Texans in. It's on Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs would then fall out of the playoffs altogether. So that's a big moment for them. Let's go to the Chiefs, who I only have losing once down the stretch. As I said, if they lose to the Texans on Sunday Night Football, that would be a big loss. It just would. That would put them at 10 wins, but the Jaguars have the tiebreaker, and now the Texans would have the tiebreaker. That puts the Chiefs in the 8th spot. Only 7 to make the playoffs. So, and that's with the Chargers missing. Of course, you can also lose to the Chargers. If they lose to the Chargers, that would take them out of a playoff spot. So you have to, those are basically 2 playoff games, the Texans and the Chargers. Not exactly, because if you beat the Broncos, that can still get you back into the playoffs, but essentially there's still little room for error here, which is part of why that Colts win was such a big deal for them. But again, if they can beat the Texans and the Chargers, they even could afford to lose one of these extra games and still make the playoffs, as long as it's not one of those 2. So if they lose the last 2 games, but they win their first 4, the way I have things going, they make the playoffs. So they're feeling okay, but still, like, if they can't drop a game they shouldn't drop, or they're really in trouble. Also, for the Los Angeles Chargers, again, there's so much up in the air with all these teams. It's hard to talk about every single scenario, but I only have them going 2-4 down the stretch as it stands right now. I had them losing to the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Texans, and the Broncos. That Texans game is a close one. And it could flip the other way, although it is worth mentioning as of right now, even with the Chargers getting 10 wins instead of just 9, because right now I have them scheduled to get 9, 10 wins would also not get them in. Jacksonville would still stay the 7 seed. The Chiefs would still stay the 6 seed. Of course, the exception is if that win is against the Chiefs, that drops the Chiefs down to 10, and that means that you have the tiebreaker as well, which knocks the Chiefs out. The Chargers would make the playoffs in that scenario. Then it would be Jacksonville with the 6 seed, the Chargers with the 7 seed, and that's, of course, assuming no one else then jumps up forward. So a lot of different moving parts here, but that's kind of what these teams need to do to try and get into a playoff spot. You can't cover every scenario, but that's the gist of it for the AFC, which is a bit complicated. Let's move on to the NFC. So these are the 7 teams, which it has stayed the same from last week. In fact, each record has stayed the same. Tampa Bay, as of recording this, I have not heard any update on the Baker Mayfield injury, so that's not getting factored into this. As a Buccaneers fan, I'm hopeful that it does not end up being too serious, but they do have a little bit of cushion as well. We'll talk about that. First, let's talk about the 1 seed. It's the Rams, Eagles, and Seahawks are the 3 teams still fighting for it at this point. Which, last week I had the Eagles getting to 1 seed. This week I have the Rams getting to 1 seed, with the Eagles dropping that one to Dallas. This is the Rams schedule, again, similar to Denver. They control their own destiny at this point. They play the Panthers, who are fighting for a playoff spot, the Cardinals, who, twice, which those feel like wins, but also divisional matchup, the Lions, the Falcons, but really the Seahawks is the other one you look at. Like, that could be tough. It's a primetime game. Seahawks are very good in Seattle. If that game flips, that's really what Seattle probably needs to get the 1 seed. In fact, let's go over to Seattle, because I think talking about their perspective makes a little bit more sense when we talk about this next part. If that game does flip, if the Seahawks can beat the Rams in the third to last game of the season, that would still not mean they get the 1 seed in itself. The Philadelphia Eagles would get the 1 seed. And if Seattle is able to win that game and they get an Eagles loss, they would still need another Rams loss on top of it. So again, you need the Rams to maybe lose to the Panthers or the Lions, and then you win out. And you see the schedule, not the easiest to win out. You have the Colts, you have the 49ers. So again, some work that needs to be done here, but it is still possible. For the Eagles, it's pretty simple because, again, the Eagles do have the benefit of being, of having a tiebreaker over the Rams, which is kind of the only thing keeping them in it at this point. But they're still very much in it. I mean, you play, you look at the schedule. The real tough one you look at, I think the Chargers, because they're fighting for a playoff spot. Bears are definitely still in it, who I did not have in a playoff spot. Well, although I think they probably will get it. We'll talk about that in a second. And then the Bills, who are, still a very good team, still have Josh Allen, right? And we'll see. Again, they just lost to Dallas, so what does that mean for this team? Granted, you just make up 1 game against the Rams. You have the tiebreaker over everybody. Just got to make sure that you can, tie the best record, and they will get the 1 seed. So that's what they have going for them. So let's open it up to the entire conference now. You see, again, I have currently the top 4 teams. We knew that. The other wildcard teams were the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Lions. Meaning the couple teams that we're going to talk about that I have missing it. There's 3 in the NFC I think are worth still discussing. The Dallas Cowboys at 8-1 now. The Panthers at 8-9, and the Bears I have winning 10 games, which is more than I had them winning last week. Still not quite enough, but they are very much in it. And I think if I had to bet, I think I probably would lean that they do make it, even though I currently have them out of it, just because games are going to go differently than how I predict them. First, let's start off with the NFC South. Let's go with the Panthers, who, again, probably their way in is with the division. There is a small way they could get in as a wild card spot, but probably is going to be the division. You see I have them going 2-4. Again, this could age poorly tonight if the 49ers are able to pull off a victory, if the Panthers are able to pull off a victory against the 49ers. I have them splitting, so I have Carolina winning the game in Carolina, Tampa Bay winning the game in Tampa Bay. Obviously, if the Panthers sweep, that makes a big difference, and depending on Mayfield's injury, that could be possible. Although, again, the way I have it, they have to make up an extra game. So, is that the game against the 49ers? If they win that game, that's it. You kind of don't fully control your own destiny, but you kind of control your own. Actually, they would fully control their own destiny at that point. Technically, you'd fully control your own destiny regardless by just winning out. But yeah, even with losing to the Rams and the Seahawks, they could be okay. They have to beat the Saints again, who they lost to, but like, it's very much possible. You feel like probably sweeping Tampa Bay is your way in, though, right? You look at Tampa Bay's schedule, and again, assuming the Seahawks and the Rams both beat the Carolina Panthers, even with the injury, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can just go 5-1 down the stretch, which sounds like a lot, it certainly does, but at the same time, you look at the schedule: Cardinals, which are no guaranteed victory for sure, the Saints, the Falcons, which are divisional matchups, the Dolphins, who have played better, and then the Panthers twice. They're no guaranteed wins, but they're all games Tampa Bay will be favored in. But again, even if Tampa Bay only goes 4-2 down the stretch, that's fine, even if both of those losses are to Carolina. And in fact, for Tampa Bay, there is a scenario where they can lose 3 games as long as it's not the divisional games, and they were able to beat the Panthers once, that they would get in. So really, for Carolina, your hope is for Tampa Bay to kind of fall off a bit. You need them to lose at least a couple, and you probably need a sweep as well. I think that's what you're looking at, is the sweep, get Tampa Bay to lose to Arizona maybe next week. That could be enough for it to work. So you just need one thing, or beat the 49ers. Let's talk about those 49ers, because they are a team that could fall behind where the Panthers are. That is another way the Panthers could look at a playoff spot, just because they play each other tonight. Again, if the 49ers win that, it's going to be really hard for Carolina to make up that ground. But if Carolina wins, that drops the 49ers to 9 wins and raises the Panthers up, or excuse me, drops the 49ers to 10 wins, raises the Panthers up to 9 wins, meaning you only need one other game to flip. Now, I have the 49ers beating the Bears right now. That's certainly a flippable game. And if you look at that for Carolina's perspective, you win and then get those 3 losses, that could be enough perhaps. Also for Carolina, again, maybe you beat the Rams or something, or you sweep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That could be a way that it gets in. So it's not impossible, but you feel okay if you're a 49ers fan, as long as you can just beat the Panthers, that you should be all right from that perspective. Now, you also have to deal with the Bears, who I currently have just one game, just one game behind the 49ers at this point. So obviously, if that game flips, well, that would change things. And even if that game, and it would be a tiebreaker, and it would just flip the win totals. So that would be enough. Let's talk about those Bears, who I'm sure the fan base will not be thrilled that I did not have them getting in, but I still think you have a really good chance. Because again, look at how I have things going. I have them projected to go 2-4, but that just means you need to go 3-3, and you're in a really good situation. And in fact, any of these games, if they flip, any of these 4, the way I have it set up, if they can get to 11 wins, they're in. At that point, you have that. It's also worth mentioning the 49ers and Lions are both still on their schedule, so you can kind of drag that team down a win as well. Currently only projected to finish 1 behind. But again, for the 49ers, even if, let's say, you drop a game you shouldn't, you get swept by the Packers instead of split, which is what I have it now, well, that means that you would beat the 49ers. That would still be in. So you just need one thing to go well for you here to get in. Any of these losses turn into wins, 3-3, that's enough the way I have everything set up. Also, a slight correction, I just realized that's not actually true. The way I have it set up, if the Bears beat the Eagles next week, but then beat the Browns and Packers once, that still wouldn't be in. That'd be a 3-way tie at 11-6, but I had them getting swept by the Lions and losing to the 49ers as well. But again, you just need one game to go wrong in that scenario to be okay. So, have a chance to get these tiebreakers, but for now, I don't have them getting in. So just needs one thing to go your way. Let's talk about the Lions, because they are a team that, I kind of brought up as a team that the Bears could steal that spot. They play each other the last game of the season. The way I have everything going, that would be enough. That would be enough to, for them to fall out at just 10 wins. And they play the Packers, who they've lost to. Although, I think both teams have looked different. As of late, if the Lions can get that win on Thanksgiving, it's a big game on Thanksgiving. If they can pull off that victory, that does change a lot. It gives you that cushion where even if you lose to the Chicago Bears in that scenario, the Bears would make the playoffs, but the Packers would fall out. So the Packers aren't fully in it, even though they're not a team I'm talking about. I just, got to cut some teams at a certain point. Feel like the Packers have a good chance at getting in, but that is a way that the Packers could fall out of the playoffs as well. So, big win. If the Lions win this game, in fact, what probably ends up happening is I stop talking about the Lions in these videos and start talking about the Packers as a team that could fall out of the playoff mix. As of right now, I think both teams feel okay about making it. But again, I legitimately feel like 8 teams in the NFC should feel okay about making the playoffs. That's not how it works. One of these teams is going to miss it. So it's pretty interesting. Finally, we have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, who, hey, they don't have any tiebreakers. So that makes things easier for us, because they have a tie, right? So unless they have another tie somewhere along the way, pretty simple for them. I have them finishing 500, 8-1, a hard record to finish with now that there is the 17-game schedule, but I have them finishing 500. So they play the Lions, and I have them projected to lose to the Lions. That is something. You win that game. Now what would have to happen is to make the playoffs, you need to win that game and another game because, again, I have the Bears finishing with 10. I kind of think that's what the Cowboys probably have to do. You can lose to the Chiefs, but then you probably have to win out to make the playoffs. So still some work to be done. I think they're going to need 10 wins to get in, and I only have them getting 8. But it is possible. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that is the Cowboys. That is every team that I'm going to talk about. Their projections, how they can make it, how they can miss it, what they need to do, all of that good stuff. If I had to, I guess I can end with what are the important. What is the main takeaway? What are the important games coming up in Week 13? Well, I think a couple of Thanksgiving games, actually. The Packers, Lions, and the Chiefs, Cowboys are definitely very important games. I think Bears, Eagles is important, both for the Eagles getting the 1 seed and the Bears getting the playoffs. Same thing with the Panthers, Rams in that scenario. I think every Panthers and Buccaneers game is kind of important. At this point, the Buccaneers play the Cardinals. That's kind of an important game, depending on Mayfield's health. And then the other big one I would say is Houston playing the Indianapolis Colts, another big one. If Houston can win that one, gives them a shot at getting a much better shot at getting the playoffs and really hurts the Colts' chances of getting the 1 seed. And again, all these teams fighting for the 1 seed, kind of every game is important for them. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.